Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your guide through, well, the often confusing world of tech rumors and what's coming next. Today, we are diving into a device that's definitely got some buzz, but it's still, way out on the horizon. The Samsung Galaxy S28 Ultra. We've got our hands on a key source, some preliminary info, and our mission today isn't just to list the specs on. We want to really unpack what's being said, what's actually expected, what's maybe just wishful thinking, and maybe most importantly, where the information kind of contradicts itself, because that tells its own story, right? This isn't Samsung talking officially, not at all. But it's a fascinating peek at what could be, and there are some really crucial caveats you'll want to hear about. Okay, so let's unpack this. First off, what's the actual status of this S28 Ultra according to this source? It flat out says upcoming and not announced yet. And they even put a disclaimer right in there saying the info is just given for a public survey and that we should not take it seriously. Yeah, it calls it an approximate configuration and not officially declared. Plus, it expects many more updated configurations when it actually launches.
Right, and that disclaimer is super important. It's not just legal cover. When you're talking about tech this far out, understanding why a source says that, well, it's key to thinking critically. Is it a feeler? Fragmented info.
Yeah.
It tells you a lot about how this pre-release game works.
Absolutely. It's part of the puzzle. So, okay, what about the price? Any hints there? The source says coming soon for a global price, but it does expect it to land somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000.
Based on past models like the S25 Ultra, presumably.
Exactly. That kind of premium flagship territory. And that would obviously get converted into local currencies like Malaysian ringgit, since that's where this source seems based. Now, this is where it gets kind of weird. The source gives an expert rating.
Oh, for a phone that's not announced?
Yeah. A 9/10 overall rating. 9 out of 10. And 9/10 across the board. Design, display, camera, features, connectivity, usability, performance, battery.
Everything.
Okay.
That's optimistic.
Right. It's a huge vote of confidence, but does that, I don't know, concern you, giving a top rating to something purely theoretical?
Concern. Well, it definitely raises an eyebrow. A 910 for, like you said, a theoretical device. That's an immediate, well, let's call it a red flag. It feels more like hype or maybe an aspiration than a reflection of reality.
Yeah.
How can you rate usability on something no one's used?
Exactly.
It makes you question the source's whole rating system, or maybe, what their goal is, putting that out there so early.
Good point. Okay, let's move into the core specs, the nitty-gritty that this source anticipates. Operating system, Android 14, that seems plausible, maybe a bit behind by launch, but okay. But under the hood, performance. This is interesting. Chipset, Qualcomm SM8475 Snapdragon 8 plus Gen 1 per nanometer. CPU, octa-core. GPU, Adreno 730.
Hold on. The Snapdragon 8 plus Gen 1.
Yeah.
Okay, that chip is, well, it's powerful, no doubt. It's still very capable today.
Yeah.
But for an S28 Ultra, launching, 2025, maybe even 2026, that chip would be 2, maybe 3 generations old by then.
That's what I was thinking. What does that tell us? Is the leak just old, or is this a really weird strategy for an Ultra?
It's highly suspect for an Ultra flagship. Samsung usually puts the latest and greatest in those. So this could mean the info is really outdated, maybe just an early placeholder someone saw, or, well, it just doesn't fit the pattern. Makes the whole spec list feel a bit shaky, honestly.
Yeah, definitely adds to the approximate configuration vibe. Okay, cameras. Main camera listed as triple 50 MP 2 MP LED flash.
Triple 50 and 2. Just 2 MP for the others.
Seems so. That's what it says. Video is 8K at 24 FPS, 4K at 30 or 60. Pretty standard high-end stuff there. Selfie camera, single 8MP, dual LED flash. Video is 4K 30 FPS, 1080p 30 FPS, and it mentions gyro ES.
Okay, gyro ES is good. Electronic image stabilization using the phone sensors helps smooth out shaky video.
Right. Makes handheld shots look better.
But yeah, that 50 MP plus 2 MP setup feels a bit unbalanced, maybe. We'd expect more from the secondary lenses on an Ultra these days.
Agreed. Okay, network and connectivity seems pretty comprehensive. 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G. It specifically mentions Sansa Sub-6 and even mmWave for US models.
Okay, that's thorough. mmWave is that super fast, shorter range 5G you find in dense areas, covering all bases globally.
Speeds listed are HSPA, LTEA, and 5G. Standard stuff. Wireless. Wi-Fi up to 802.11ac, dual band, Wi-Fi direct, hotspot.
Just ACTEC, not Wi-Fi 6 or 6E or even 7 by then. Another potential flag for the age of this info, perhaps.
Good catch. Bluetooth is 5.1 with A2DP and LE.
A2DP for audio streaming, Low energy for things like watches, standard.
Location. GPS, AGPS, GLONASS, Galileo, BDS covers all the major satellite systems.
It's a good navigation support.
Yep. NFC for payments. Physical port is USB Type-C 2.0 with USB on the go.
USB 2.0, not 3 point something.
That's what it says. USB 2.0.
Again, for a flagship Ultra, potentially years away, that seems slow, very slow for data transfer. Another inconsistency with the Ultra branding.
Right. And no FM radio, no infrared port mentioned.
Expected absences these days, mostly.
Now, design and durability. Dimensions, 163.6 by 75.5 by 8 millimeter. Weight, 192 grams.
Okay, typical large phone size.
Build, glass front,
Okay.
plastic frame, plastic back.
Whoa, plastic frame and back on an S Ultra.
That's what it lists. Glass front, plastic frame, plastic back. It does mention standard SIM, dual SIM support is available, but it also lists IPX8 water resistance, up to 1.5 meters for 30 months.
Okay, IPX8 is good, high-level water resistance.
And it says armor aluminum frame with tougher drop and scratch resistance advertised.
Wait, so is the frame plastic or armor aluminum?
Exactly. The build says plastic frame, but this feature description says armor aluminum frame.
Okay, that's a direct contradiction right there.
Yep. And it also mentions stylus support.
Stylus support makes sense for an Ultra, fits the Note legacy. The durability angle with IPX8, and maybe an aluminum frame fits too. But the plastic back, the potentially plastic frame, it's a weird mix for that top tier.
It really is. Maybe the plastic back is for, I don't know, drop resistance.
Yeah.
But it feels like a cost cut for an Ultra.
Could be. Plastic doesn't shatter like glass.
Yeah.
But yeah, perception-wise, it's unusual for a $1,500 plus phone. Gives us something to scratch our heads about.
Definitely. Sensors, fingerprint under display, ultrasonic, accelerometer, gyro, proximity, compass, barometer.
Standard sweep. Ultrasonic fingerprint is usually pretty quick.
Messaging, browser support, no Java. And then colors, a whole list. Phantom black, green, cream, lavender, graphite, sky blue, lime red, and a BMW M edition.
BMW M edition. Okay, that sounds like a special variant, but a wide range otherwise.
But then, down in an FAQ section, it says only black and white colors are guaranteed for now, more details at launch.
So another conflict. A big list, but then a note saying only 2 are sure.
Exactly. And finally, made by South Korea. Okay. So we've laid out the specs, but as we've been pointing out, digging into this source gets, well, it gets really interesting when you spot the contradictions. This is where the deep dive really earns its name, I think. That initial disclaimer about approximate configuration starts to look very, very relevant.
Absolutely. These inconsistencies are gold mines for understanding early info. They show you it's likely pieced together, maybe from different points in development, different leaks. Not necessarily wrong, but certainly not finalized. It's a perfect example of why you treat early leaks as clues, not blueprints.
Totally. Okay, let's highlight the big ones we found. First, the display. Summary box up top, 6.6 inches, 1080 by 2400 pixels, AMOLED.
Right, AMOLED. Vibrant colors, deep blacks.
But then the detailed display section lower down, 6.7 inches. Slightly different resolution, 1080 by 2388. And crucially, it says the device type is IPS LCD capacitive touchscreen.
Okay, that's a huge difference. AMOLED versus IPS LCD. They look and perform quite differently. AMOLED has self-lit pixels, better contrast, true blacks. IPS LCD uses a backlight, generally good viewing angles, but usually can't match AMOLED's contrast or black levels, contradicting the screen tech and the size that fundamentally changes the expectation of the visual experience.
Yeah, that's a big one. Then memory puzzles. Top summary box, 12 GB RAM. Sounds good for an Ultra. Detailed memory section, 8 GB RAM.
Oh.
And internal storage in the details says 128 or 256 GB. But an FAQ adds that Samsung can launch many variants from 128 GB to 1 TB.
So we have a conflict on RAM 8 versus 12 GB, which is significant for performance. And then storage is listed as 2 options, but hinted to be potentially much wider, up to 1 terabyte. Again, the range makes sense for Samsung tiers, but the RAM conflict between sections just adds to the uncertainty. Is it 8? Is it 12? Big difference in multitasking and future-proofing.
For sure. And finally, battery power. Top summary, 5,800 mAh LiPo. That sounds massive.
Yeah, 5,800 would be huge. LiPo, lithium polymer.
Detailed battery section, 5,000 mAh.
5,000 mAh Li-ion. Okay, 5,000 more typical for a Samsung flagship, though still large. Li-ion, lithium-ion.
Those sections do agree on fast charging, whatever speed that might be.
But that's an 800 bill of money difference in capacity. That's not small change. That could easily be an hour or 2 of screen time difference.
Yeah.
And a slight difference in battery chemistry, LiPo versus Li-ion, though functionally similar for users. It points to different potential sources for this info. Like you said earlier, these aren't minor details. They really highlight the approximate nature of this whole spec sheet.
Absolutely. So, okay, After all that, what does this mean for you, the listener, if you're interested in this phone? It paints a picture of possibilities, right? An exciting potential future device, but definitely not a final spec sheet you can bank on yet.
Precisely. Think of it as early concept art, not the finished painting. But interestingly, the source does touch on some practical things for after it launches, assuming it
Right.
does.
Like where to buy it. It suggests the usual places,
Yeah.
commerce sites, malls, official Samsung stores, using Malaysia as the example location.
Standard retail channels.
And it confirms there will be an official Samsung warranty if and when it launches. Good to know.
Always important.
And for financing, it mentions you can likely buy it through EMI, monthly installments if you have a credit card.
Useful for a potentially expensive device.
But the big takeaway here, looping back to the start, is that the source itself says expect many more updated configurations at launch, so the final S28 Ultra could still look quite different from this early glimpse. Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive on the Samsung Galaxy S28 Ultra. What we found is, yes, an exciting, potentially high-spec phone down the road, but it's one absolutely wrapped in this fog of early, sometimes contradictory information. It's actually a great reminder, isn't it, that the journey from rumor to a real product in your hands is, well, full of twists and turns. Sometimes the leaks tell us more about the process than the product.
That's perfectly put. Knowledge is great, but understanding context is key. This whole exercise wasn't just about speculating on a phone. It was a lesson in reading the tech tea leaves, how to look at early info critically, spot the inconsistencies, understand the disclaimers, and separate the hype from the hardware possibilities.
So